Okay, so we've pre-created 2 virtual machines with SQL Server 2012 installed, and the SQL VMDKs are created as thick provision eager zeroed. And you'll see that when you look at the hard disk, you can see right there, thick provision eager zeroed is set up for that disk. So we're good to go. All right, the next thing we do is go in and set up an anti-affinity rule. Because we don't want DRS moving these boxes or these VMs to the same host. So what we're basically doing here is we're saying these 2 virtual machines always need to be separated. They should never run on the same host. So we scroll down, we pick node 1, we pick node 2, hit OK. And our policy is to separate virtual machines. So that's our prereq. Next step is to install the failover clustering feature, which you do from Server Manager. That's not a VMware product, that's Microsoft. Failover clustering is installed on each virtual machine. Then we create a new cluster, and we add SQL Node 1 and SQL Node 2 as cluster nodes to that cluster. Okay, so you give the cluster a name and an IP address. All right, so cluster configuration is complete. That's the first part. So the service is running now. Next thing we have to do is configure the quorum settings. That's where we choose node and file share majority. It's because we're not using a quorum disk. We want this replication over IP. We essentially give it a Windows folder path, the UNC path. Next, we go into a SQL Configuration Manager, and we enable Always On High Availability Group for each instance in the availability group. It's really just a checkbox. Now, of course, in order for SQL Server to pick this up, we have to restart the SQL Server service on those nodes. All right, finally, we do our prep step. We go in and take a full backup of the database because we don't want to destroy the data accidentally during this process. Now that we're enabled for the Always On Availability Group, now we have to create an Always On Availability Group. So we choose the database that we want. We tell where the primary replica is going to be. It's on SQL Node 1. And then we add SQL Node 2 as a secondary replica, and we're going to mark that as readable so that we can, any applications that need to just read from the database and not write, can utilize this second node. We configure our database listener, give it a DNS name, and an IP address. And then finally, you can do a data synchronization preference. You can do full synchronization, or you could skip your initial data synchronization and ship your backup tapes to the remote site if you're doing this across the WAN, and not have to have all that bandwidth taken up with your replication traffic. So everything looks like it's good. Show the dashboard, and we are up and running.